January 22nd, 1987. A day that forever changed the lives of those who witnessed it and left a lasting impact on American history. It was the day Pennsylvania State Treasurer Budd Dwyer, once a respected public servant, tragically took his own life during a live press conference. Today, we will delve into the story of Budd Dwyer's life, the tragic events of that fateful press conference, and the lasting lessons we can learn from what unfolded. Budd Dwyer was a man who dedicated his life to public service. He was elected as Pennsylvania's state treasurer in 1981 and served in the role for over a decade. Known for his integrity and commitment to public office, Dwyer was respected by both his colleagues and constituents. He was a family man, a public servant, and someone who had earned a reputation for being straightforward and hard-working. However, in 1986, everything changed. Dwyer was indicted on federal charges of accepting bribes in exchange for awarding a state contract. The charges were serious, and the media attention was intense. Dwyer vehemently denied the charges, claiming he was the victim of a political conspiracy. But despite his protests, in December of 1986, he was convicted of bribery, tax evasion, and conspiracy. He was sentenced to 55 years in federal prison, a sentence that was seen as severe and something he believed was undeserved. This conviction, combined with his deteriorating mental health, pushed Dwyer to a breaking point. On January 22, 1987, Dwyer called for a press conference. What was expected to be a routine public statement on the case would soon become a moment that would haunt the American public for decades. At first, the press conference seemed ordinary. Dwyer appeared before a room full of reporters to speak about his conviction and his fight against it. He was calm, composed, and seemingly ready to make his case to the public. Dwyer walked confidently to the podium. With a calm demeanor, he began speaking about the charges against him, repeating his innocence and frustration with the legal system.
They know I'm innocent and want to help, but in this nation, the world's greatest democracy, there is nothing they can do to prevent me from being punished for a crime they know I did not commit. Some who have called have said I am a modern-day Job.
Dwyer's words were strong, and he continued to assert his innocence. For a brief moment, the press conference felt like any other, but the tension in the room was palpable. Something wasn't quite right. As he spoke, Dwyer began to speak less about the charges themselves and more about the weight of his situation, the pressure he felt, the toll it had taken on his life, and the consequences of his conviction. In a moment that no one in the room could have anticipated, Dwyer reached into a manila envelope he had placed on the podium. At first, it seemed like any ordinary gesture, but as he pulled out an item from the envelope, the room fell into a tense silence. What he held in his hand was not a piece of paper or a document. It was a small revolver, a gun, carefully concealed inside the envelope. The reporters in the room were still unsure of what was happening. Dwyer then made a single, fateful decision that no one could have predicted. He raised the gun to his mouth. As soon as the gunshot rang out, panic erupted in the room. Reporters began shouting, scrambling, unsure of what to do. Some rushed to the phone to call for help. Others were frozen in place, unable to process what had just occurred. News stations quickly cut to breaking coverage as the world learned what had just transpired. Dwyer's death, witnessed by millions, was broadcast live and quickly became one of the most shocking moments in television history. In the days that followed, the country was left to process the events that had unfolded. Dwyer's death raised many questions. How had it come to this? Was it the pressure of his legal battles? Was it the overwhelming public scrutiny? Or something deeper that no one had seen? What we saw that day was not just a political figure's fall from grace. It was the tragic end of a man struggling with overwhelming mental and emotional stress.